Peace, peace, peace. I am Dr. Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into the July 22nd edition of Rhetorically Speaking. Props to those of you who are watching on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, like, go ahead and hit the comment section, even though y'all have been killing me all up in there, right? I appreciate it because it keeps the engagement high, and I'm always here for opposing viewpoints. Props to those of you who are watching on Facebook. I strongly suggest you go from Facebook to the YouTube. Again, hit the subscribe, the like, and comment. Just because once I get my legs up under me, we gonna be disconnecting from the Facebook. Why? Just because it's been a lot of things going on Facebook. I don't even understand my timeline, and I'm sure y'all understand me with regards to that. They recommending groups, they recommending people I've never heard of, and I just keep seeing it. So at some point, I gotta shut it down. Right, I got to shut it down. So I encourage you to go to the YouTube and again hit the subscribe, like, and comment. And last but certainly not least, props to those of you who are listening on a streaming service, whether it's Spotify, Apple. I don't know if Capitalistic Hove still got title popping, but if you're doing it, make sure you hit the subscribe, like, and also comment there. I know last week I shocked y'all by coming back. I gave you 20 strong minutes rather, out of retirement. It wasn't necessarily a retirement, but it was like coming off the bench. I was like Kawhi Leonard, right? Like dealing with some knee issues, some commitment issues to the game, right? But I was like, nah, it's in my blood. I enjoy this too much. I enjoy having thoughtful conversation and offering critique on things that matter. So I came back like Beyonce. Dropped a 20-minute, I ain't gonna call it a gym, but I felt good about it. Now this week I'm gonna push it a little more. I'm gonna give you all about 22 to 24 strong minutes. It's reminiscent of remember Mike Jordan when he left, I think it was the Birmingham Barons, the AAA, AA baseball affiliate of the Chicago White Sox. He left there. He came back wearing the 4-5. It ain't to play games with you. It's to aim. All right, well, we not doing the gun violence here, right? And we anti-capitalistic Hove, even though he in my top 5 favorite MCs of all time. But y'all get the picture. When Mike came back, he didn't just come in playing 48 minutes a game. He had to get his legs up under him. He had to get some conditioning. So at some point, we're going to be back to the hour that y'all have been accustomed to over the years. For right now, we going to get in, get out like a robbery. All right, I ain't going to be dropping too many hip hop lyrics, especially those of a problematic nature. Right? But listen, we got a dope show on tap for you today. We will be talking about Joe Biden's decision not to seek re-election. We'll be looking at his top 3 potential replacement candidates. And also, I'll be giving my opinion on who I think society and black folks specifically should be voting for. And last but not least, I'll be discussing what I've been seeing across social media from you all that's been having me in my bag. Right, and ain't nothing like when it's a controversial topic. Some of y'all call me a hater. Some of y'all call me a dissenter. Like this is intentional. Nah, I just be seeing what y'all be writing, and I be having a different viewpoint, and that's what keep us sharp intellectually. I think that's the goal of all of this, right? I think this is the goal of all of this. So stay tuned for sure. On July 21st, 2024, a day that will go down in American history, Joe Biden announced that he will not seek re-election, which sets the stage for a wide open Democratic primary. Listen, there have been top Democrats who've come out questioning whether he has the capacity, whether he has the support at this point to be able to beat Donald Trump in the upcoming election. You got Nancy Pelosi. You even got Barack Obama coming out and saying, listen, maybe we need to reconsider him as the candidate for the Democratic Party. This comes off the heels of an awful performance. Let's call it what it was. It was an awful performance in the debate against Donald Trump, which brought in the question about his cognitive fitness. Listen, if you can't remember things while you're on stage, if you can't remember the talking points that you've rehearsed time and time again, then how are you going to go out here and beat this man who has the support, especially after an assassination attempt, an alleged assassination attempt. And so the wheels have been turning within the Democratic Party. It's been a snowball effect. It started off as just mild chatter, folk on social media. Then it picked up steam. And now here we are, July 22nd, attempting to consider, okay, who's the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in November? Now, when we talk about the top 3 potential replacement candidates, the first person is a no-brainer. And again, this isn't my endorsement of any of these individuals, right? We recognize that I'm an independent. I'll get to my social media post in a little bit where I talked about there's nothing that's going to take place here that's going to have me change my mind about voting independent. Okay? Unless there's one person in the Democratic Party that I would consider. And I do encourage our folk to consider him as well. But the number one candidate at this point is his current vice president, Kamala Harris. Listen, she's the current vice president. She has high name recognition. When we look at recent polls, she has a 45% favorability rating among Democratic voters. All right. She has extensive political history, which includes roles as a U.S. Senator and California Attorney General. She's led major initiatives on criminal justice reform and consumer protection. And she has strong support among persons of the global majority. You know, I don't say minority. She has strong support among persons of the global majority, especially amongst black women, right? Significant backing from African American and Latino voters. Now, with that being said, my concern, and the concern that I've seen from others when it comes to Kamala Harris as the nominee for the Democratic Party, she is, number one, complicit in genocide of the Palestinian people. Okay? She supported these policies that have made it through the House, through the Senate. She stood up there with Joe Biden when he said Israel has a right to defend itself. Even if she has a different viewpoint, there wasn't a courage there to come out and say, listen, I feel differently about this. Why? Because that's not how the game works. She wouldn't be considered for now President of the United States if she came out in support of a true ceasefire. Now, she skirted around the issues, right? She skirted around, okay, yeah, ceasefire, maybe, maybe we need to consider it. But this is after immense pushback from the people. And so that's one reason, right? So she's already alienated so many folk. We know that there are millions upon millions who have called for a ceasefire in Palestine for the last 10 or so months. And so will she have the support of these people? I mean, if people are, if they walk it like they talk it, then no, they won't. No, she won't. But that's something to consider. Also, she is also complicit in mass incarceration within California as her during her tenure as Attorney General. Folk look at her being tough on crime stance, which has led to higher incarceration rates. And we know that disproportionately impacts black and brown folk. So let's be clear. Yes, she may very well be, again, concerning Democrats, the best person to beat Donald Trump, which it seems that that's all folk care about. If we talk about the sharing of the Project 2025 manifesto is any indication, folk are afraid. Folk are afraid, and understandably so. Because we've seen what's taken place already. The repealing of affirmative action, of Roe v. Wade. I completely understand why folk are scared. And they're saying, listen, the lesser of two evils. Okay? But we should be asking these questions. We should be critiquing her. Yes, even at this late stage. Is she the best candidate? Given her history of mass incarceration and policies related to that. The controversy over her support for U.S. military aid. And her direct relationship with human rights abuses that's been taking place in Palestine. For me, that's enough to say no. But I understand for others, and we'll get into that, why they say, yeah, you know what? No, that's not enough. Because we fear Donald Trump. The next candidate is Pete Buttigieg. And now listen, I don't know too much about him. He's currently the Secretary of Transportation and former mayor of a town in Indiana. He has a 40% favorability rating among Democratic voters. Now, we know that he's a part of the LGBTQ plus community, which will undoubtedly appeal to that community as well as young voters. We know that with a campaign like his, he can energize a diverse and what folk consider a progressive base. I watched him on Bill Maher, and he talked about J.D. Vance and why J.D. Vance was named the Republican vice president nominee. He communicated that effectively, which is vital if you're going to be the president of the United States. Hence why Joe Biden's cognitive fitness was called into question. Now, folk will attribute it to his age. He attributed it to his illness. But there are older folk, like Bernie Sanders, who I'll talk about in a second. Heck, like 45. Now, he's a liar, right? And the reason why we're not talking about age when it comes to Donald Trump is because we just accept liars in society, especially in government. We know that government folk will lie to us. So even no matter what the fact checkers say, which have come out saying, damn, 98% of what he said is a lie, we don't really pay liars any mind. But if you stumble and fumble and bumble over some words, we're going to look at that and say, hey, are you fit? Because we expect you to lie. We don't expect you to fumble over the lies. There's a distinct difference there. And so with Pete Buttigieg, the fact that he's a strong communicator, that bodes well. Now, some of the challenges related to him being the Democratic nominee for president, limited executive experience, right? As I said, he's now in transportation, right? He's going to go from transportation to the president of the United States. He also has a mixed record on handling racial issues in South Bend, Indiana, where he was mayor. There were numerous protests over police practices, and racial tensions. And he didn't necessarily do the best job in navigating that. Some may attribute it to his youth. But ultimately, this may be a reason as to why he may not garner the support needed to not only become the Democratic nominee, but also to beat Donald Trump. The third person is Gavin Newsom, who holds a 38% favorability rating among Democratic voters. He is the governor of California, right? Now, when we talk about his strengths, he has extensive executive experience managing one of the largest states in the U.S. He's led them through multiple crises like wildfires and the pandemic. He has progressive policies on healthcare and climate change and social issues. All right. He's implemented ambitious climate goals and expanded healthcare access. Now, when we talk about some of the challenges, and when we talk about challenges, this isn't necessarily related to the Democratic Party, right? And those who might vote blue. Because those who voted blue or who will vote blue, when we look at his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and him shutting the studio down, many folk applauded that effort. Why? Because we recognize what was taking place. We recognize what was taking place and the losses that were happening, the deaths that were happening. Unnecessary deaths in other states if they would have took similar actions. So his strict lockdown measures may be a reason why he may not be the strongest candidate. And then also just economic issues that exist in California. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. When you're running one of the largest states in the country, you're bound to have economic issues, right? And so that's what's been identified when we listen to political pundits and discussing whether he'll be a strong candidate. Because you may have folk from California who's like, listen, I'm not a fan of your get down. So it's no way that I'm going to vote for you to be the president, the Democratic nominee, and let alone the president of the United States. All right. And then lastly, some of you might be like, yo, I have no idea who Gavin Newsom is. And that's part of it as well. Nobody knows who you are. Name recognition is so vital in what it is that we do here in terms of government. I saw a post on Facebook. It was from some musician. I can't remember who it is. But what it said was, politics is just the entertainment aspect of this entire conglomerate that is America. It's all about name recognition. It's why y'all love Barack Obama, why y'all love Michelle Obama. Because when you dissect their policies, when you dissect things like the inaction when it comes to the Supreme Court, which led to Trump being able to name so many people, you might look at Barry and Michelle a little bit different. All right. Now, for me, if I was to vote, I can't vote in the Democratic primary because I am independent. But if I was to vote, I would throw my support to Bernie Sanders because he has influenced progressive policies. So when we talk about, we did it, Joe, even though I know it's a little bit, the context is different. We did it, Joe. We got some student loan forgiveness. Folk got their loans forgiven. That's because of Bernie. That's because of Bernie and the Bernieites. Bernie had this such a progressive platform. And he probably should have been president 2 times over. But y'all went with Hillary and y'all went with Biden. Hell, I went with Biden in 2020. But it was because of Bernie and his platform and what he stood for, saying, listen, we need to wipe out all student loan debt. We need health care for all. And we saw the traction that he started to gain. And so what happens if you see the traction that folks start to gain? You know what? Let me go here. Let me take that idea. Now we're going to massage it a little bit. So now we're going to get, 10, 20,000 for some of y'all. But we ain't going to just wipe it all out. Right? So the very things that y'all love, y'all can attribute to Bernie for the most part. But y'all not going to go that route. Why? Because, listen, let's be clear. Identity politics are at play here. Identity politics are at play. And that's what we're going to start getting into some of the social media reaction when it comes to this potential candidates. All right. So first, I am going to show Brianna Joy Gray. She is the host of the Bad Faith podcast, overall dope sister, who on Twitter she commented, or she wrote rather, Biden should have been forced out because he underwrote a genocide. Instead, donors forced him out after a bad debate. That tells you everything about the party's priorities and who they'll pick to replace him. This is an incredible opportunity to invest in third-party alternatives. So let's just dissect that for a second, right? I completely agree with all of it. Hence the reason why I'm posting it here. But yes, Biden should have been forced out because he underwrote a genocide. Now, I know folk, and when it comes to politics, folks only care about what they can see. It's what's in front of me, what's impacting me and mine. Now, we may go a little bit out into our neighborhood, into our communities. Then we start getting into things like race and gender. But folk really only care about what directly impacts them. Hence the reason why what's taken place over the last 10 months for the majority of folk who had no wherewithal about the genocide that's been taking place in Palestine for 70 plus years. All right. Those who are just now becoming aware, they're not necessarily really concerned. It's understandable. I don't necessarily agree. I think we need to recognize how all of this is interrelated, but I understand. But ultimately, this should have been enough for folk to say no. I talked last week about how the numbers that are coming out from the Palestinian Authority, the health ministry, is saying, you know what, something about 40,000 folk have died. Let me rephrase that. 40,000 folk have been murdered by Israel. Hundreds of thousands more impacted by famine and health-related issues. But then we're also seeing researchers who are saying, listen, there have been hundreds of thousands of deaths. Because if you're impacted, if you're experiencing famine and you die from famine, and the famine is a result of war, then that number should be attributed to that as well. Okay? Now that should have been enough for folk to say, nah, we not doing this. But this is the game. This is the game of politics. Even in the Democratic primary that took place in May, it was Biden, it was Marianne Williamson, and it was some other bull, right? And I applaud them for having the courage to even say, listen, we know we have no chance of winning because the delegates have already promised their allegiance to the Joe Biden campaign. But you know what? We're going to do it anyway. Which will ultimately further ostracize them and further impact their political career. Again, this is how the game is. These folk are hand selected. I'm the father of a toddler. And the comparison is, this isn't, hey, what you want to eat, baby? Go ahead and go find what you want. I'm gonna open the fridge up and hey, get whatever you want. No, it's do you want goldfish or do you want some dino chicken nuggets? These are your options, because that's what you gotta do with children. Because otherwise, they're gonna start wilding. They're gonna be so indecisive. And for those of you who are like, listen, goldfish and dino McNuggets, you ain't got no babies. Because it gets real in the field. All right. But this is what it is. And so it's just like, here, you got Joe Biden. This is it. We're going to keep the party going. And now that he's out of the race at this point, now we're going to give you Kamala. We're going to give you Gavin Newsom. We may give you the governor of Michigan. We got Pete Buttigieg there. We probably ain't going to give you Bernie, who might be the best candidate. You got to take what it is that you can get. But that wasn't enough for donors. Because this is about money. This is about power. This is all about control. This isn't about the well-being of America. This isn't about shared humanity. Because if it was, he would be gone. Nah, he's gone because he stumbled, fumbled, bumbled over some words during the debate. Because trust, if he didn't, even if it took him a little bit of time, a little bit longer to recall some things, he would still be the candidate today. Right? And so as she said, that tells you everything about the party's priorities and who they'll pick to replace him. This is about money. This is about power. This is about control. And so who best to put in his position? They signed off on this running mate being Kamala Harris because she checks the boxes. She's a woman. She's a black woman. Okay? So they signed off on this. So of course she's going to be the hand-picked one. I don't know if y'all watch The Boys on Amazon Prime. But she is Valerie Newman. Right? She is the hand-picked, rest in peace, Valerie Newman, for those of you who watch The Boys. But we have no say-so in this, truly, about who the candidates are. And then when we start to look at the delegates and the super delegates, we definitely going to start questioning whether our votes matter. And that's not even talking about the Electoral College when we get to the get down to the get down. So again, we know what this is about. This isn't about us. No matter how much y'all change y'all profile pictures to we're all in with Kamala. We doing XYZ with Kamala. That's cute. That's a beautiful thing. It's performative. In my estimation, it goes just to the overall brainwashing and the lack of critical thought. And again, this is no shade. This is no shade. Because I'm in this with y'all. Right? Because ultimately, we should be advocating for something completely different. Go look at what's been taking place in some countries in Africa recently. And seeing what the get down is. Now, that's what we all should be advocating for. To change this entire system. But now, political violence saying we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. That's what they said. Right? And last but not least, she said this is an incredible opportunity to invest in third-party alternatives. And so for me, this is why more than likely I'll end up voting for Jill Stein. Okay? Consider Cornel West. But when we talk about change, right? When we talk about true change, not somebody commented on a post where it's like, political progress is like a pawn on the chessboard. And my response to that was, how much time do you want for your progress? And those are my words. Those are the words of James Baldwin. It took my mama's time, my daddy's time, my grandpa's time, my ancestors' time. How much time do you want for your progress? Because that's what's continuously pushed. Conversely, we see on the opposite end. We see that the change that's taking place, they're not worried about time. They're saying, you know what, the time is here and now. We're going to try to control the House. We're going to try to control the Senate. We're going to get the president in that we want. And we're going to speak our truth to power. We don't give up. Who cares? We the bullies on the block. If you look at it, the Republicans for the last umpteenth years have been the Kendrick Lamar to the Democratic Party's Drake. They not like us. Fuck them. We don't need to worry ourselves about bipartisanship. Let them do that because they want to appease everybody. Hence the reason why you got rapists in the Supreme Court. If we're gonna speak truths, let's speak truths. Because y'all man Barry, he didn't want to nominate black women, right? He ain't want RBG to say, yo, RBG, listen, you got to roll, sister. You know what I mean? I love you. I love what you did. But you getting up there in age. You going to die soon. And when we talk about age in politics, right? Because I'm one that firmly believes once you, and again, this is me saying, even though I would probably vote for Bernie, once you get past the life expectancy age for your respective group, you shouldn't be able to be president because you're on borrowed time. And some folk might call that ageism. Cool, call it what you want. Because at this point, you beating the game, right? You got, if we playing Super Mario, you ain't got too many lives left. Your best years are behind you. And again, this is not no shade to our elderly folk, because it's not to say they don't have anything to contribute. But at some point, if you want something different, we need to bring new blood in. And we see what the younger generation is doing in terms of politics. We see what they're doing in terms of the workplace. They throwing up the proverbial middle finger at employers, saying, "No, I don't need to take your abuse for this. We're gonna keep it pushing." And they throwing up the middle finger if we're completely honest. All right. So, but ultimately, there needs to be some true change, and from my perspective, that comes from a third party. Because why? The third party, we know if they get 5% of the overall vote, this entitles them to more money. And now here you have a perfect opportunity. You have a perfect opportunity to not only, if folk who want to vote for Kamala, right? We saw that 44,000 black women were on a phone call and raised $1 million+ to help her campaign. She don't need that bread, y'all. Cool. I'm glad y'all did that. Y'all feel good. Y'all feel like y'all contributing. She doesn't need that bread. She has powerful super PACs backing her. If anything, again, and this is where folk differ. If I'm Kamala, I'm coming out saying, yo, keep your bread. Right? We got the bread handle. Do something in your community with that money. Again, that's community first. That's direct impact. But if these 44,000 black women, again, I completely understand why they're doing it. There's identity politics at play here, and I'm here for it. Black woman, AKA, throwing up the pinky, the ski week, salute. You know what I'm saying? But is that any different than what they do on that other end? Yeah, well, listen, we don't necessarily know what your politics is, but white is right. White power. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just bringing it up as an idea. And why identity politics plays such a huge part in everything that we do. But those 44,000 could have said, hey, listen, you know what? Hey, if we truly assess it, our values might align even more with Jill Stein, with a Cornel West. Middle finger to the Kennedy bull. So you know what? Let's just try to throw all of our support here. What could that do to shift to shift politics here in America. So it's no longer we're voting for the lesser of two evils, which folk always are so quick to throw out. But now what do we thought we might get a third evil that might be even lesser of an evil than the other two. But I get why that's not a thing. I get why that's not happening. Okay. So also I was sitting and I was thinking about other candidates who could potentially be the vice president for Kamala Harris, because that has been some of the conversation. Folks start throwing out the name Josh Shapiro, and I wince when I hear of Josh Shapiro, the governor of the state that I'm in, Pennsylvania. Because why? He's especially connected to genocide in Palestine. And it's not because he's a Jewish man. Shout out to Jewish Voices of Peace, right? Jewish folk who are on the right side of history. Jewish folk who didn't need the international courts to say that what's happening in Palestine is settler colonialism, and that the settlements are illegal and should be dismantled. There's been Jewish folk on the right side of history since this has been taking place. But nah, he's not one of them on that side. Right? He's come out for things that have been taking place in Pennsylvania, the protests, where students have been righteous, true heroes, who have everything to risk. He's come out and spoke scathingly about how they're showing up. Listen, we know there's been folk at protests. This has been happening since the beginning of time. Agitators from the other side coming out and doing things to harm the movements that are taking place. But him attributing it to those who stand in solidarity with Palestinians. It might not be the smartest decision. All right. I mean, for the conglomerate that is the Democratic Party, it may make perfect sense. But it might also mean 45 gonna be 47. So, getting back to social media post, I made another post regarding, and I know those of you of a certain age have no idea what it is that I'm talking about, right? But what I said was, too many black folk aren't familiar with Alderman Fred C. Davis from Good Times. Otherwise, you'd know when they're wearing their political hat, which is always, I got to make sure my inflections are right. They are not your homie. Now, to set the stage for you, Fred C. Davis, who he's an ancestor now. I'm not familiar with his real name. But in the Good Times episode, he would come to the Evans' household. He would come in. He would call them his favorite family. And he would ask them to do something for him. And they could smell the bull job from a mile away. And think of alderman like a city councilman. So it's like wanted the votes, wanted the support. So he'll say and do he'll say anything to get in their good graces. And that's what we see when it comes to all of these politicians, both locally and nationally. Biden went into folks' home and ate chicken with black folk. We call that pandering. Because if you're not doing it throughout the course of your 4 years, throughout the course of your career, then what else is it? Kamala Harris, we see her at the get down, dancing awkwardly to, what was it, Lil Wayne or something. Sis, you ain't got to do that. Because it just don't read as authentic. We don't never catch you doing that. That's like the Hillary Clinton, I got hot sauce in my bag. I guess that made her a real one. But it's so concerning for me watching black folk fall victim over and over and over and over and over and over again to politicians, especially those in the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not on some Ice Cube black agenda, all of this. Yes, I do think we do need to have our own we need to create something politically for us, our own political hub, to where we can then have even more influence. Because clearly our influence is there. That's the reason why you got Kamala Harris as the vice president. But it's just like the pomp and circumstance. And again, I'm not speaking to all, and I'm not trying to demonize or vilify folk for making decisions the way that they make decisions. But ultimately, when we're looking at it, it's like, okay, yes, these folk get in office. And then they get in office. We put Barry in office. And then he comes out and says, yeah, I ain't Black America president. I'm all of America's president. Despite him going and using a Jeremiah Wright and using other black folk who are influential within the community to help him ascend. It's just like we're stepping stones. Platforming folks to get to where they want to be. And then you look around like you end up like Whoopi in The Color Purple. It's like, what about me? Is it any mail for me? And they're like, yo, if you don't get your back in the house. And that's what it's been like, both on a local level and a national level. I posted earlier today about I've seen folk who are on one of these 44,000 raising money for Kamala Harris, and it's your bread, you do what you want. Also supporting Sherelle Parker. Also being critical of Sherelle Parker. Because why? She doesn't care about the morale of city employees. No, you're going to get back in this office. We got an economy to look after. That means more than anything. That means more than people. And so it's like sort of like a cognitive dissonance here. Issa, and I talked about that, Issa messed us up when she says, I'm rooting for everybody black. Because everybody black look like Clarence Thomas. Now, I'm not saying Sherelle Parker is Clarence Thomas. I'm not saying it ain't some similarities that exist there. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. But supporting somebody black and one's identity should be a starting point. That shouldn't be the end. And so we need to be critiquing more. We need to be holding folk accountable more. Both at a local level, which is a little bit easier, than on a national level. This is going a lot longer than I thought it would, and I appreciate you all indulging me. As we wrap up, I guess my lasting message would be more thoughtful. All right? Be more thoughtful. Trust yourself more. Do your own research, and I hate that I'm saying that. All right, do your own research, because why? Research a lot of times consists of YouTubes and etc. Because we live in a capitalistic society where we don't even necessarily have the time to really deep dive into things that matter. But I just implore you all to consider what true change could potentially look like in America. Now, Kamala Harris will probably be the Democratic nominee. It's going to be a highly contested race. In that event, I'm not going to say I hope for Kamala to come out on top, but because I care about black folk and a lot of black folk are supporting her, whatever y'all want to come out, I listen. All right, cool. I'm here for it. But just as we have a responsibility to do more, we have a responsibility to ask better questions. We're worth more than just blindly throwing our vote, blindly throwing our energy, and so forth into things that truly matter. With that being said, listen, I appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, hit the subscribe, like, and go ahead and comment. Until next time, peace.